welcome to Chit Chatting with Jocelyn. I'm really glad that you could join me this afternoon. We've got two great shows, and I think you're really going to enjoy what you're about to hear. I have Elliot Axelman back. I think you've all seen him before. I've had him here. As you know, he's an author. I only have 4 of his 7 books, and you're starting an 8th.
I think so, something like that.
Something like that. Great books. So you can, we'll give you the website so you can go get them. They're wonderfully written, and I say that because you got to keep it simple, especially for me. Was a teacher for many years, and when I read things, I need to be able to understand it. I may read it twice, I may read it 3 times, I may throw it on the floor, go back and try and read it again. I do learn by doing. That's why I did so well in EMS. But these books are understandable. They're not overwhelming. They're not huge. You can go back. You can mark them up, which I did, and you can turn around and explain it to somebody. So don't miss the opportunity for these books. So Alu and I have known each other for a while, and we both talk really fast. So I'll caution you, we'll slow down because I know it's tough to hear us when we get going fast. But he has written another book. Yes, can you imagine? And it's right here, excuse me. So there you are, Presumed Guilty. And as you can see, we went a little smaller and a little fatter, but it's still not a huge book. So and the print is medium, so you're not going to need your magnifying glass. And wait a minute, are there pictures? And there's pictures. So always a good thing. So okay, I can see the picture and feel good about it. What is it about you in writing? So in full disclosure, you're a paramedic. So you and I really get what's going on in the world, and we cut to the chase, and we get rid of the garbage and the gray stuff, and we just really kind of get to the point. So I'm guessing, I won't say assuming, I'm guessing that this is the same thing. You have a passion for writing, you have a passion for getting to the truth, and you are pretty much done with the garbage going on in New Hampshire, and we'll stick to New Hampshire for now. Am I right?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you so much for having me back again.
Absolutely,
so
anytime.
To be here with you. You're awesome. So yeah, this book, it's my latest. I published it like 5-6 weeks ago. It's my longest book. It's 70,000 words, so substantially longer than the others I've written. I think it's my best book. It also has the most broad appeal. Most of the books I've written were towards really a libertarian audience, maybe voluntarist, maybe conservative. This is about due process, and I think probably 100% of people are very close to that, believe in due process.
Explain due process to everybody.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what I'm going to spend the whole time hopefully explaining. So procedural due process is the presumption of innocence, and it's the doctrine that the entire civilized Western world has now. So pretty much every country besides maybe North Korea and some other really authoritarian countries, every justice system that's civilized believes everyone who's suspected of a crime by the government has to be presumed innocent, meaning the burden of proof is on the government, meaning if nothing happens and if no side makes a good case in court, the prevailing presumption is that the person's innocent, and that also means that they cannot be punished at all, any punishment. And I'll explain what exactly a punishment means for the definition for this book.
Okay.
Nothing can happen until they're convicted or if they plead guilty. So if they're adjudicated as guilty in court, either by conviction by jury or by pleading guilty. So until that happens, you can't be punished. And punishment means prison, fine, a police officer handcuffing you and beating you up, or abusing you in some other way, taking your money, stealing your property. Those are all punishments.
Is a punishment being held in prison?
Yeah. So being held in jail, there's a whole chapter in this book about being held in jail pre-trial.
Okay.
Now again, it sounds, doesn't sound that complicated, but some don't understand. Pre-trial means before trial.
Yes.
So yeah. So there's a whole thing about pre-trial punishments, and people, as we know, with January 6th, I did a whole chapter on January 6th because that's due process violation. That's kind of an anomaly, although it has elements of pre-trial bail condition punishments and other issues of being held in jail before being convicted, because those people have been in jail for over a year without being convicted.
It's been a very long time.
Yeah. So that's a punishment. But I have a chapter on just pre-trial bail conditions and jail and punishments.
Okay.
And again, we have our friend the Crypto Six that I think I spoke about last time for some reason, Ian and the other 5, who did victimless crimes. And there's a chapter about victimless crimes as well, because if there's no victim, there's no real crime, meaning you shouldn't be punished at all, even if convicted. So So they have really strict pre-trial bail conditions. First, they were held in jail for months. Pre-trial, meaning not convicted, not even trial yet.
Not even charged, I believe, right?
They might have been charged. I don't know. Well, for this was a federal case, so they got a grand jury indictment.
Okay.
And I explain all that in the book. So they were charged by a grand jury. So they had charges, but they weren't convicted yet. But they were held in jail for months, even though there was no real flight risk or anything. It was all ridiculous. But then they were punished. They were released and they were punished. The punishments were you can't talk to your friends. You can't use any of the fun stuff. So guns, drugs, cryptocurrency, anything else. You can't use them.
Darn.
Don't even think of getting close to a gun or drugs.
Yep.
They couldn't. Some of them could not talk in public. Like no First Amendment. You can't talk on radio or TV. You couldn't do interviews.
So gag order pretty much.
Yes. So very interesting bail conditions. But again, forget, the First Amendment was violated by that. But even forgetting that, this was a punishment. So the government was doing it. So the government was punishing a person before he was convicted, which is just wrong. So
because
there's a
you're
whole
presumed
chapter on that.
Innocent,
Exactly. Yep.
according to our Constitution.
Yes. Yeah. According to the Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, you're supposed to be presumed innocent.
Yep.
But again,
I want people to be able to go Fourth and Fifth Amendment, look it up. That's what points directly to what you're saying, presumed innocent. And that's pretty much what our country was based on.
Yeah,
so I'm
but in almost every
horrified.
single area of law, and I go through, the book was originally like 5. I'm like, wait, there are like 5 areas of law where you don't have due process or punished before convicted. But by the time I finished the first draft and like published a book or even wanted to publish the first draft, I had like 26, or I had like 20, and then it finished with 28 chapters, an intro and a conclusion, but like 26 areas of law. In almost every single area of criminal law in the United States, and a few areas of civil administrative law and constitutional law, and a few other areas of law, people in almost every area, people are presumed guilty and punished, and then after the fact, they can hire a lawyer, which only costs a few $1 million, and try to prove they're innocent and flip. Again, the presumption is that you're guilty. You can hire a lawyer and go to court and try to flip the presumption, which is very hard. So what's the famous saying? Whoever has possession is already like 90% considered the person who has rightful possession of the thing.
Correct.
Possession is like most of the battle.
9/10 of the law.
Yeah.
Possession is 9/10 of the law.
Exactly. So it's very hard to flip something and get a turnover in football. You have to intercept it. It's very, very hard. Whoever has the ball has the advantage. So you can hire a lawyer after the fact and try to flip it, which is very hard, especially when you're in a court of law where the judge and prosecutor and the police officers and everyone else is literally all working for the government.
Correct.
So the prosecutors, the judge, and whoever else is there is all working for the government.
As people like to say, fairness. There's I've been watching this for years, and specifically in my case, I actually experienced this, and it is devastating, absolutely devastating. And that was 11 years ago, and it's like it was yesterday, but 11 years ago. And then it was very apparent that the criminal had more rights than I did, and that as defendants, you were supposed to figure out this whole prosecution, blah, 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 blah. And mine was a little different because I was a defendant, but I'm hearing exactly what you're saying. And coming from a blue family, a red, white, and blue, and a very blue family. I don't know, what color is EMS? Do we have a color?
Not really. We're the stepchild. No one cares enough about to give us a color, which is fine.
I know, because we're the redhead step.
Yeah. Well, there's
step-headed
actually a
children.
thing called like the Code Green campaign, I think, about awareness of PTSD and other mental health issues for EMS and also like all first responders. I think that was called the Code Green campaign. I think I knew the people who started it. So maybe green, but I don't know.
Maybe green. I don't know.
It's too complicated.
There
are no colors left.
And what does it matter? I mean, all we know is, private EMS, we rock, we kick butt. But so I experienced it, and then it opened my eyes to, well, who's there for me? Well, where's the rules? Where's the book? Where's the something that I can try to maneuver my way through? And it's exactly as you said. You're paying thousands, tens of thousands of dollars for an attorney, and quite frankly, if you belong to the Bar Association and you're paying an association fee, who do you really work for? Who do you really represent? Because last time I checked, the Constitution of New Hampshire says, or did say, and they probably amended it, I'd have to go back and look. Daniel would tell me this right off. Actually, you probably will. But how do I want to say this? That attorneys back in the day answered to the general court, and the general court, that terminology has been lost, and they've now called it the legislative branch or the Congress or the House or whatever. Technically, they are the general court, and that's where we, the people, we're supposed to take our grievances, our problems, our issues, and ask for help. And the judicial branch was totally separate, but I don't have the whole story. That's another show.
Now all lawyers technically swear an oath, I've heard, to be officers of the court and to really respect the court and respect all the laws. Which if I do end up going to law school, because that's the tentative plan, to go to law school, and then I finish it, I may have some conflicting issues and may not want to take that oath to always swear to, I guess, be loyal and obey and respect the court. And that could be an interesting First Amendment case, because as a voluntarist, I don't believe in the law. I reject all laws except for murder and theft and physical abuse.
Okay.
So I've heard that, an attorney is a fiduciary. They are supposed to be really the chief advocate for their client. But that being said, they also swear to be an officer of the court. And that's why I've heard when people do things pro se, when they represent themselves, they can kind of do more. And the judge actually lets them get away with doing more than they would let a lawyer get away with, because a lawyer is like a sworn officer of the court, and their first allegiance is kind of to the court. So they're given more
leeway.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Wiggle room.
Yeah, I'm definitely not an expert in any of that, but it's very interesting that they have to swear some allegiance to a court, which again kind of makes sense. They're officers of the court. They're an advocate, but they are officers of the court. But if one day when I'm a defense lawyer or constitutional lawyer for civil rights, I may not want to swear an oath to always worship the judge and the government's current laws, because I think the laws are repugnant. And again, everyone has a natural right and a constitutional right to have free speech. And I've thought about this, and it's a really tough issue. I don't know how to solve it, because everyone should have free speech to do whatever they want and say things, even on social media, which is a new phenomenon. But what do you do with prosecutors, judges, also private lawyers, but judges and prosecutors? If they say certain things on social media, like I do hate guns, which is their right to say that, do they have to accuse themselves in half the cases because they all involve guns? It's very complicated. Do judges have free speech or not? Or do they give that up when they become a judge? That's a complicated issue that one day maybe I'll have a solution for. But government officials should have free speech, but also they really have a duty. I guess what I'm saying is they have a duty to be really impartial.
Right. And how do we prove that when that's what they're saying on social media? It's kind of like what we're looking at with our politicians right now. They're running their campaigns, and they say one thing, they get into office, if they get into office, and boy, all bets are off. They do as they darn well please. And I think this is what we are seeing now from our position, that most people are blind to right now. Their eyes are not open. They're not seeing everything we've been talking about, and we're actually living it, experiencing it firsthand. This is quite the movie.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I'm ready for the credits. I'm ready for it to stop. And I need everybody to be arrested and go to jail and get their just desserts.
Yeah. So the good news is that in almost every chapter I do have some solutions.
Nice.
And then the final chapter is really pretty much a big solution.
Okay.
Which I'm still debating whether to give away the spoiler to your viewers.
I wouldn't.
Because the last chapter has a bit of a spoiler. But I mean, there are some hints throughout the book. Okay. But in almost every chapter I give some solutions, because I don't want to just complain. I want to give solutions to how to reform that part of due process, that element of due process. Yep. So going through the chapters, there's one on civil asset forfeiture, where government agents can steal through a federal program. They can steal anything they want without even charging you with a crime. All the police officer has to do is say they suspect that the property, so it could be a car, weapons, money, drugs, a house. I have examples in the book of them stealing houses. All they have to do is say that theoretically it could have been used in a crime in the past, present, or future. It might be involved in a crime. So we're not talking about murder weapon, like I shot someone with a gun. If anything has even tangential involvement in any crime, and I mean involvement, even tangential, they can take it and they just seize it. And they don't even have to charge you with the crime.
Without a warrant?
I don't think they need a warrant. But
okay.
No, they don't need a warrant for asset forfeiture. No. All the officer has to do is say he thought that in the past, present, or future, it could be involved in a crime. So for instance, if anybody ever sold any weed, even 1/1000th of a molecule in your house, they will take your whole house. Yeah. So there are examples of that in the book where they took a house.
Well, that really kind of nails down to protect and serve is a ad campaign, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, no, they protect and serve politicians. They don't protect and serve you. And I think I discussed it in the book. There have been, I think, multiple Supreme Court cases of the United States where they ruled the police have no duty to protect the public. Their duty is to enforce the law afterwards, but there's no duty to protect the public. And we saw that with Uvalde. We saw that with Florida. We saw this with so many mass shootings. They do not care. Whereas we have some 22-year-old punk who pulled out his pistol and in 15 seconds ended a would-be
potential massacre.
Yeah. So, and this is, again, one 22-year-old there with his girlfriend in the mall who I think like just got his concealed carry. It just became permitless in Indiana July 1st. So he was carrying. Thankfully, he ignored the signs on Simon's Mall that said no guns. So we have him versus like 376 cops with literally infinite armor and reinforcements. They had all the weapons. Yeah, unlimited. Yeah. And they would not go in for over an hour. So again, just a big difference. You can compare those two.
Mm-hmm.
So police do not have a duty to protect you. So we have a whole chapter here on police brutality as well and their accountability. And I explain why from criminal and civil standpoint, they're almost never liable.
Mm-hmm.
Criminally, it's because prosecutors are literally their coworkers, their friends. Prosecutors work hand in hand with cops. No one disputes that. And on the civil side, it's hard to sue them if they violate you because of qualified immunity. And I explained some of the basics of qualified immunity. And I think I'm working on a paper for school. One of the things I'm working on is I'm reading a whole long paper on the history of qualified immunity, and it's very interesting. But the courts have built it up over the years, and now they just reaffirmed in this Supreme Court case session in the summer of 2022. They reaffirmed and they condemned, they criticized some lower courts for not giving qualified immunity to some egregious violations by cops. There was a CBP agent, I think, by the Canadian border by Washington, I think by British Columbia, and the officers went into a guy's house and beat the crap out of him, and they got qualified immunity. They can't even be sued. So that's another big issue as well.
Which is, in even the other, coming from another angle, we the people pay their salaries, which is kind of like the politicians, but we the people pay their salaries. The police chiefs are not elected, they're appointed. Mm-hmm. So here's an entire department that we're paying for, that their job is to stop crime. So wherever that lands, they should be doing that job and not numerous stops per shift. Full disclosure, I'm married to a cop for 34 years, and I can say cop because I was married for 34 years. You all have to call them police officers because that's respectful. Just living through this for all that amount of time and hearing and watching the cases, it's very upsetting to me that, again, a few, which I think it's all the way through life, can paint everybody else with a brush and destroy it. So we're not saying all officers are bad, but I will go out on a limb and say they don't all follow the Constitution and the rule of law. And here's another thing, sheriffs. Sheriffs in one county are the chief law enforcement officer of that county.
But they've abdicated that duty like Congress has to the judicial and the regulatory state, the agencies, because they don't want responsibility. I think a similar thing has happened with sheriffs. Now, I don't know how much of that is because of New Hampshire state law. Doesn't seem to give them a ton of power. I don't know if that matters because they're supposed to have the power, but police do most of the things in New Hampshire at least, and I think most states. But yeah, I mean, maybe sheriffs, the county sheriffs in New Hampshire have abdicated that duty to the police chiefs.
Well, I think it's time, everybody. We need 10 constitutional, kick-butt sheriffs running for every county.
Well, there is someone who's very pro-liberty.
There we go. I knew you'd say that.
Ben Ware,
yes.
a friend, is running. He's a great activist. He's running for Merrimack County, which is where I live.
Nice.
He's running for sheriff. So let's do what we can to help him.
Absolutely.
And he's already said he won't enforce victimless crimes. So what you do in your own house, if you don't hurt another person, he will not send men with guns to hurt you. And he might even encourage the local police to also not
Well,
hurt
it'd be
you.
really nice if we had 10 constitutional sheriffs that would go into the schools when there's a problem and be able to deputize whoever they needed. They could be pre-deputized and totally trained.
His campaign slogan is actually deputize everyone, I think.
Hello?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we've got people that are very well trained. We have members of the public. We have former, because I don't want to say retired, former military.
But civilians who aren't in the police or military definitely can't, like, be accurate when they have to defend themselves as much as cops, right? Like the guy in the
I
Indiana
disagree.
Mall, the guy in the Indiana Mall only hit like 8 out of 10 shots from 30 feet away with his concealed carry pistol, right? So, yeah, and he had no police training, whereas Uvalde again, and the average cop takes like 70 shots to hit the average guy, whereas again the average concealed carry guy, not trained, guys like me, no military formal training, no police, actually I think are a lot more accurate than cops. I don't even know why. It's interesting. I think cops shoot.
We'll have to get an expert in here.
On average, but it's interesting.
In here.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Well, I totally agree with you, and anybody that owns a weapon should be fully trained and keep up with their training.
The average civilian who carries a pistol is literally more accurate than cops. Yeah. It's interesting
because we train a lot more.
Yeah, I don't hit the range a ton anymore, but
dry firing's perfectly acceptable because ammo is pretty expensive and. Accuracy is not about.
And speaking of self-defense, like that kid from Indiana, there's a whole chapter here on self-defense.
Okay.
And how I've been saying for a long time, if you defend yourself, it's a crime. You will be punished at the very least. You will be arrested. Your firearms, probably all your firearms and ammunition you own will be taken, which for me, again, it's a seizure of a lot of assets. And you will probably go to jail. And before even charges, then they'll charge you with crimes. Then they might let you out on bail. They might not. But you might be in jail for a week, meaning you'll probably lose your job and maybe even your girlfriend, and maybe even your wife. So these are punishments, right? If I lose my job and
you're supposed to be presumed innocent.
Yes, but if you defend yourself, you're presumed guilty. And again, like I said, in almost every instance, you're presumed guilty. And almost every single self-defense case, especially with a gun in the United States, they're presumed guilty. They're punished. Almost all of them, I think, maybe 95% are arrested and brought to jail for at least a few days.
Now, isn't that what they just did to that gentleman in New York that defended himself?
Yep. Clear self-defense on video camera, and a guy was able to fend off an attacker in New York where he couldn't have guns because the politicians left him defenseless and wanted him to die. And finally, it took, I think, a few weeks. I guess he was in jail. I don't know if he was in jail.
At Rikers Island for over a week.
I heard they dropped the charges. I heard just now they dropped the charges.
They did drop the charges, but he was
put in prison for a week. If you ask him, he'll say it feels like a punishment. The government did something to him that caused harm. That is a punishment. That's the definition.
And they never looked for the video until after the fact. I'm sorry. Where's the investigation?
Yep.
Put an ankle bracelet on him. That's still a punishment.
And by the way, for the viewers who say castle doctrine, stand your ground, certain kinds of laws passed in a lot of states, that's BS. In my experience and the research I've done, it makes no difference. In the states with the best stand your ground and castle doctrine laws, still, if you defend yourself, police officers will come, even if you have a million video angles and evidence, and the guy admits he was shooting you, and you shot back once, and you saved a pile of puppies and babies and your wife and kids, and in your own house. Still, you'll be arrested. Your guns will be taken from you. And again, get a lawyer for $1 million, and then you'll get out of jail in a week. No big deal. That's just how self-defense goes in the United States. It's always how it goes. I've said it for a long time. There's a whole chapter on that. There's also a chapter on the massively broad warrants, like warrants based on geolocation, geo-tracking, which was used in January 6th as well, but also keyword search warrants. So if there's any crime, let's say, and I imagine that this is kind of how it works. If there was someone named like Rose White in southern New Hampshire, or in New York City, where there are millions of people within a few square miles, and she was kidnapped or something, anyone who searched for the terms on Google, Rose or White, which could be millions of people search for those words, could be in the warrant and get knocks on the doors. Now, but if you did nothing wrong, you have nothing to fear, right? No, because if they talk to you, and I think you know this by now, and you say anything that is a lie or omission or a mistake or anything that they don't like, or if they don't like your face,
or you're
go to prison.
Afraid.
Yep, go directly to jail. So, and all this happened because of a massively broad warrant. Now, what does the Constitution say about broad warrants? I think if I can find it here in the next 3 minutes, in the Fourth Amendment, I believe it says the word specific, I believe, or particular things to be searched for and seized, right? That's what the Fourth Amendment says. So particular or specific. And I believe the courts and legislatures have ruled that warrants have to be very specific. But that kind of sounds pretty broad, right? If they can.
I'm not seeing it in.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have it right here. So.
Well, as you can hear the rain and the thunder. This is a fun afternoon.
Oh yeah, here it is.
There you go.
Particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Particular, that kind of sounds like the opposite of broad, right? Where these keyword search warrants and the geolocation warrants are extremely broad. Again, if they do a geo map warrant, where what they do is they go to a cell phone provider or something.
Correct.
Google
Well,
or Apple, and
2,000 Mules is the exact example where the geo tracking and the cameras that were there looking at the actual drop boxes were put there by the government. So,
Yep. I mean, as far as that geolocation, that was done by private people, I think.
Right, that geo-tracking
if the
was
government
done
is doing this in
privately.
a square mile in New York City, that can entrap 1 million people in the warrant. And these are 1 million people who are 100% innocent. Nobody even suspects them of any crime. And before you can get any warrant for anyone, you have to have at least a suspicion that this person, Jocelyn, committed a specific crime, kidnap. You have to. If you don't have a specific person in crime, if they have evidence that you kidnapped someone because you have a blood on your hand and video evidence and eyewitness testimony, then they can get a warrant.
Yep.
There has to be a specific person in crime.
Kind of feels like fishing, throwing out a net,
Yes.
bringing in anything and everything they can, and then sorting through to see what matches.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty sickening, when especially with the technology we have and very intelligent people that are supposed to understand the Constitution of New Hampshire and the Constitution of the United States to blatantly ignore it and just go along on all I can think is a power trip at this point.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, this has been absolutely fascinating. I think we can,
And there are like 20 chapters I didn't get to. And did you guys the spoiler at the end of the book?
No.
It's a few tiny, tiny hints. But yeah, people have to read the book. There's so much in it.
Well, I think we all need to become educated to what world we're actually living in right now, because it's not what we were educated or told or have experienced. I think we need to step back, read the book, and then say, oh my goodness, this did happen. I've seen this happen. I have experienced this. I know this. And I think people would be shocked at the amount of lawlessness, unconstitutional and illegal things that are going on in our world. And it's everywhere. It's in our government. It's in our police. It's in our judicial system. It's in our schools. I mean, it's everywhere. And we need to wake up and we need to demand that laws and rules be followed, and it has to be equal, the biggest one being you're presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, and disclaimer, if you read the full book, the first thing is guaranteed to learn something. Even lawyers, the foreword is written by my friend. He's been a constitutional lawyer for like 25 years. And even he, I think, learned some new things in the book. And I also have to warn people, if you read the full thing, it might kind of make you hate the government. So if you love the government and you love loving them, then maybe don't read the book, because after you read it, you will definitely hate the government. You might even be a voluntarist.
So, that just means go out there and do the right thing and straighten out everything that's been basically screwed up. Oh my goodness. All right, everybody. I'm so glad that you joined me for this half hour. Be sure to pay attention and see next time that Alou comes back. And thank you for joining me on Chit Chatting with Jocelyn. See you next time.